Hey, Joe here. Let's take a look on how to do lighting in Unreal Engine 5. So if you're completely brand new, just click on this UE5 tab and click Download Early Access, and this will get you in. Once that's done, just click on this Launch button up here. And once that's done, we're going to be in the project browser. We'll just click on the Games tab, and this will be all the templates for the different kind of games. We're just going to go with first person, but feel free to choose any you want. And we're going to go down here and give this a name. So we'll just call this, call it whatever you want. I'll call it lighting testing, and just leave these on the default and hit create. Now that we're in the project, you can see we have this first person template starter project. You'll go up here and you can see there's a bunch of useful stuff, but really we want to start from scratch. So we'll click in the scene view and hit Control Spacebar, and that'll bring up the content browser. And we can right click on content and click new folder, and we'll just call this levels. We're going to create a new level for our blank scene. And we'll just right click on levels and hit add import content and click level and give this a name. Doesn't matter. And we'll just double click and hit save. And that'll bring us to a completely blank Unreal Engine 5 scene. You can see up here, there is nothing in here other than just the folder name. So we have this black void, and it's a little hard to tell what's going on. So one way we can see is go up here to the create tab, hit shapes and add a cube. And you'll see we have this guy here, and he's kind of floating around in the void. And if I hold right click on my mouse and use the WASD keys to fly around the scene, I can see that, just as we confirmed, it's just a dark void. Let's get some light in the scene. So we'll go up to the create tab once again, click lights and click directional light. And if we fly over here, we can see that our cube is now being lit up from one side. And that's because a directional light is basically a sun. It's a big, bright object shining in one specific direction based on the rotation. So the sun's facing directly this way, which means just this side is going to be lit up. This is great, but we still have this hellscape, so let's see if we can fix this up a little bit. Next thing I'm going to do is give a ground to the cube, just because there's nothing really for any light to bounce off of. We kind of need a base. So I'll click on this landscape tab right here, and you'll see this green kind of grid come in, and I can just hit create, and that'll just create a very basic landscape for me. And I'll leave the landscape tab and enter editing mode. And if I fly around, you can see things look a little crazy. It's really hard to tell what's going on. And that's just because there's no light in the scene, really. So what I can do to find my cube again, I can click cube, and then I can hit the F key, and I'll fly straight to my cube. And you can see he's actually underneath the terrain. So I'll click this arrow up here, and if you don't see this, make sure you hit spacebar, and you can toggle between the different modes and find the arrow, and just drag them up. And you can see that now the sun is shining on the cube, and it's actually casting light onto our ground. And that can actually look great, but for now it looks a little crazy. And that's just because there's nothing else here. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to add is something called an atmosphere. So if I go up to the left-hand corner and click on create, then hit visual effects and sky atmosphere, you can see that nothing happened. And that's just because we don't have a setting enabled. So we'll just click on our directional light, and we'll scroll down till we see something called atmosphere sunlight, and feel free to use the search bar here. And just check that, and voila, we have this beautiful sunset. That's just because if we click on our directional light and look at our rotation, the sun is down here at the 0 value. And just like in real life, when the sun's down by the horizon, you're gonna get this beautiful like kind of orangish glow. And if it's up at the top, it's gonna be like a normal sunny day. So what we can do is actually make sure have directional light selected and just change this value by dragging. You'll see that as I move the sun around, if I can find it, the sun will actually change with the atmosphere. So if it's up at the top, sunny day, down at the horizon, sunset. The next glaring problem with our scene is that we have this big black horizon in the distance. And that's just because we can see forever because this is a totally flat surface. So the best way of covering that up is you click on the create tab once again, go to visual effects, and we're just gonna add this Exponential Height Fog. And you might have heard of fog before in games. This is usually a good looking thing for us now. It really makes the scene look realistic. It gives like a texture to the air where before it just looked like it went on forever. You can see it kind of has this haze, especially like near the sun. And what I like to do with my fog is by default, it's tinted a little bit blue, but what I'll do is I'll come to this right side, making sure you have fog selected, click on fog inner scattering color, and just set that to be white. And I think overall, I just like it when the fog is just white, which is just like how it looks naturally. And then we'll also go into directional inner scattering color and just do the same thing there. We'll just make that white. Sweetness, so you see that things look pretty good. One other thing we can do to really make the scene pop, it costs a little bit of GPUs, but it'll be okay for now. We're gonna turn on Volumetric Fog. What that means is that as light flows through the air will actually diffuse the light. And so you get this really realistic lighting effects with your air. If you have the computer that can handle it, which most people do at this point, definitely keep that on. Sweet. And then if you're completely new to Unreal, just a couple settings you can do with the fog. So fog density here allows you to increase or decrease. By default, it maxes to 0.05, but you can change this to be whatever you want if you want to get really like Silent Hill up in here. But I think 0.05 is a pretty good spot for us just to look like a natural scene. The next thing we want to take care of are these super dark shadows behind objects. So since the sun's over there and casting a light on this cube, this little area is blocked completely. So we have our direct lighting, but we don't have any indirect lighting. And that's pretty essential to having a really realistic scene. In real life, there's tons of that. Things bounce light everywhere. And in game engines, it's a little harder to achieve. So thankfully, we can just go up here to the Create tab, click on Lights, and then click Skylight. And right away, you can see that these kind of dark areas filled in. Things are looking a little bit more natural. One thing I like to do with my Skylight, I like to come down here to light color and just tint it a little bit blue. That'll just make things feel a little bit more realistic. Totally up to you though. Okay, next thing, we have this nice looking sky. We can just add clouds. Clouds are super easy in Unreal 5. They're built in basically. You just go to Create, go to Visual Effects, and click on Volumetric Cloud. And voila, we have these beautiful looking realistic clouds. The last thing I'm going to show off is something called light shafts. So if you've never heard of them, they look something like this. Basically, it's dark and these light shafts coming over like a tree or a hill or through the darkness. You'll see these in movies and games all the time. So let's take a look on how to do that. To really sell the effect, I'm going to build a little structure just to kind of recreate something like this or like a window with some light coming through. So I'll just select my cube and then hit the spacebar and spacebar once again to go into scale mode and just pull this guy up and over. So we're just building a wall. And then maybe I'll build a little window. So I'll hit Control C, Control V to copy and paste and just build a little window up here. Control C, Control V. So now that we have our weird kind of postmodern sculpture built, let's take a look at these light shafts. So by default, without anything turned on, you will see that there's a little bit of haze coming through without any settings turned on. And that's mostly the fog being lit up. And sometimes that's all you need. Like, you know, that is a light shaft in a way, and that might be all you need. But if you need that like extra effect, if you need something that looks like this, this is what you do. So click on your directional light and under search details, just type in shaft. And you'll see this thing called light shaft occlusion. Just turn that on and you'll start seeing these kind of beams of light coming through. Like they're a little stronger than what was there before with the fog. And if we kind of like fly around, you can kind of see the effect taking place. If you want a more stylized approach, if you want it to be a little stronger, you can actually turn on light shaft bloom and they really start to pop. So like anywhere that those light shafts exist, they'll start like having a stronger color. And if you look at something like the trees here, like right now, you could have this effect if we had some trees. So a really powerful effect, just use in moderation. Some people like to really go crazy with that, but really all you need is just a little bit. Okay, to leave you guys with some final tips, here are some things that I wish I knew when I was getting started. First thing, for our directional light, before we were kind of rotating this by hand and just kind of plugging these values away, but sometimes you want more creative control and you want to move it exactly where you want. So if you hit Control L without letting go of control, so never let go of control, you can actually use this gizmo to rotate the sun around with your mouse, and things get really cool really fast. Like you kind of feel like God, and you can kind of move the sun wherever you want, and you can see it real time. So like you can imagine how you could program like a day and night cycle with this, like starting at the top, kind of going down into like the dart. Another thing is your fog. You don't want to get crazy with the fog. I left the fog kind of high just for demonstration's sake, but I like mine somewhere between 0.01 and 0.05. So like if you go to 0.01, that might look a little bit more natural. Just depends on what kind of scene you want. Cool, well that's it. I really appreciate you guys watching. I hope it helped. If it did, feel free to like, consider subscribing. That's it for now. I have an idea for a couple more videos, perhaps like a day and night cycle video, or maybe just showing like a nighttime scene and how to do that. But for now, appreciate you guys watching. Until next time, peace.